Legendary Passages, Episode 86, 12th Argonauts, The Return of the Argo, from Diodorus. Previously, the Argonauts rescued King Laomedon's daughter from the Trojan sea monster, and suffered casualties escaping with the golden fleece. In this passage, they are rescued by the sea god Glaucus, returned to King Laomedon for rewards, and Medea avenges Jason's family against King Pelias. After setting sail with the fleece, Orpheus prays for an end to the savage storms. The sea god Glaucus guides them to safety and tells them their fortunes. When they arrive at Troy, Hercules sends some Argonauts to pick up the princess and the magic mares. Naturally, King Laomedon throws them in jail, but Prince Priam snuck in swords, and they fought their way out. Laomedon is killed, and Priam rules as king until the Trojan War. At home in Thessaly, King Pelias kills Jason's entire family. The Argonauts plot their revenge, but Medea comes up with the plan. She dresses as an old woman, tricks her way into the palace, uses magic to become young again, and says she can do the same for Pelias. He agrees, and she tricks his daughters into killing their own father. The Return of the Argo, a legendary passage from Diodorus Siculus, Library of History, Book 4, Sections 48 through 52, translated by C.H. Oldfather. There were wounded among the chieftains, Jason, Laertes, Atalanta, and the sons of Thespius, as they are called. However, they were all healed in a few days, they say, by Medea, by means of roots and provisions for themselves, set out for sea, and they had already reached the middle of the Pontic Sea when they ran into a storm which put them in the greatest peril. The Argonauts and Glaucus. But when Orpheus, as on the former occasion, offered up prayers to the deities of Samothrace, the winds ceased, and there appeared near the ship Glaucus the sea god, as he is called. The god accompanied the ship in its voyage, without ceasing, for 2 days and nights, and foretold to Hercules his labors and immortality, and to the Tindaridae that they should be called Dioscuri, sons of Zeus, and receive at the hands of all mankind honor like that offered to the gods. And in general, he addressed all the Argonauts by name, and told them that because of the prayers of Orpheus, he had appeared in accordance with the providence of the gods, and was showing forth to them what was destined to take place. And he counseled them, accordingly, that so soon as they touched land, they should pay their vows to the gods, through the intervention of whom they had twice already been saved. After this, the account continues. Glaucus sank back beneath the deep, and the Argonauts, arriving at the mouth of the Pontus, put into the land, the king of that country being at that time Byzas, after whom the city of Byzantium was named. There they set up altars, and when they had paid their vows to the gods, they sanctified the place, which is even to this day held in honor by the sailors who pass by. Hercules and Laomedon. After this they put out to sea, and after sailing through the Propontis and Hellespont, they landed at the Troad. Here, when Heracles dispatched to the city his brother Iphiclus and Telamon to demand both the mares and Hesione, Laomedon, it is said, threw the ambassadors into prison, and planned to lay an ambush for the other Argonauts, and encompass their death. He had the rest of his sons as willing aids in the deed, but Priam alone opposed it, for he declared that Laomedon should observe justice in his dealings with the strangers, and should deliver to them both his sister and the mares which had been promised. But when no one paid any heed to Priam, he brought 2 swords to the prison, they say, and gave them secretly to Telamon and his companions, and by disclosing the plan of his father, he became the cause of their deliverance. For immediately Telamon and his companions slew such of the guards as offered resistance, and fleeing to the sea, gave the Argonauts a full account of what had happened. Accordingly, these got ready for battle and went out to meet the forces which were pouring out of the city with the king. There was a sharp battle, but their courage gave the chieftains the upper hand, and Hercules, the myths report, performed the bravest feats of them all, for he slew Laomedon, and taking the city at the first assault, he punished those who were parties with the king to the plot. But to Priam, because of the spirit of justice he had shown, he gave the kingship, entered into a league of friendship with him, and then sailed away in company with the Argonauts. But certain of the ancient poets have handed down the account that Hercules took Troy, not with the aid of the Argonauts, but on a companion of his own, with 6 ships, in order to get the mares. And Homer also adds his witness to this version in the following lines. Aye, what a man, they say, was Hercules in might. My father he, steadfast, with heart of lion, who once came here to carry off the mares of King Laomedon, with but 6 ships and scantier men. Yet sacked he then the city of proud Ilium, and made her streets bereft. But the Argonauts, they say, set forth from the Troad, and arrived at Samothrace, where they again paid their vows to the great gods, and dedicated in the sacred precinct the bowls which are preserved there even to this day. Medea and the death of Pelias. While the return of the chieftains was as yet not known in Thessaly, a rumor, they say, went the rounds there that all the companions of Jason in the expedition had perished in the region of the Pontus. Consequently, Pelias, thinking that an occasion was now come to do away with all those who were waiting for the throne, forced the father of Jason to drink the blood of a bull, and murdered his brother Promachus, who was still a mere lad in years. But Amphinoma, his mother, they say, when on the point of being slain, performed a manly deed and one worthy of mention, for fleeing to the hearth of the king, she pronounced a curse against him, to the effect that he might suffer the fate which his impious deeds merited, and then, striking her own breast with a sword, ended her life heroically. But as for Pelias, when he had utterly destroyed in this fashion all the relatives of Jason, he speedily received the punishment befitting his impious deeds. For Jason, who had sailed that night into a roadstead which lay not far from Iolcus, and yet was not in sight of the dwellers in the city, learned from one of the country folk of the misfortunes which had befallen his kinsman. Now all the chieftains stood ready to lend Jason their aid, and to face any peril on his behalf, but they fell into dispute over how they should make the attack. Some, for instance, advised that they force their way at once into the city and fall upon the king while he was not expecting them. But certain others declared that each one of them should gather soldiers from his own birthplace and then raise a general war, since it was impossible, they maintained, for 53 men to overcome a king who controlled an army of important cities. While they were in this perplexity, Medea, it is said, promised to slay Pelias all alone by means of cunning, and to deliver to the chieftains the royal palace without their running any risk. And when they had all expressed astonishment at her statement, and sought to learn what sort of a scheme she had in mind, she said that she had brought with her many drugs of marvelous potency, which had been discovered by her mother Hecate and by her sister Circe. And though before this time she had never used them to destroy human beings, on this occasion she would by means of them easily wreak vengeance upon men who were deserving of the punishment. Then, after disclosing beforehand to the chieftains the detailed plans of the attack she would make, she promised them that she would give them a signal from the palace during the day by means of smoke, during the night by fire, in the direction of the lookout which stood high above the sea. Then Medea, the tale goes on, fashioning a hollow image of Artemis, secreted in it drugs of diverse natures. And as for herself, she anointed her hair with certain potent ointments, and made it gray, and filled her face and body so full of wrinkles that all who looked upon her thought that she was surely an old woman. And finally, taking with her the statue of the goddess which had been made so as to strike with terror the superstitious populace and move it to fear of the gods, at daybreak she entered the city. She acted like one inspired, and as the multitude rushed together along the streets, she summoned the whole people to receive the goddess with reverence, telling them that the goddess had come to them from the Hyperboreans to bring good luck to both the whole city and the king. And while all the inhabitants were rendering obeisance to the goddess and honoring her with sacrifices, and the whole city, in a word, was, along with Medea herself, acting like people inspired, she entered the palace, and there she threw Pelias into such a state of superstitious fear and, by her magic arts, so terrified his daughters that they believed that the goddess was actually there in person to bring prosperity to the house of the king. For she declared that Artemis, riding through the air upon a chariot drawn by dragons, had flown in the air over many parts of the inhabited earth, and had chosen out the realm of the most pious king in all the world, for the establishment of her own worship, and for honors which should be for ever and ever, and that the goddess had commanded her not only to divest Pelias, by means of certain power which she possessed, of his old age, and make his body entirely young, but also to bestow upon him many other gifts, to the end that his life should be blessed and pleasing to the gods. The king was filled with such amazement at these astonishing proposals, but Medea, we are informed, promised him that then and there, in the case of her own body, she would furnish the proof of what she had said. Then she told one of the daughters of Pelias to bring pure water, and when the maiden at once carried out her request, she shut herself up, they say, in a small chamber, and washing thoroughly her whole body, she made it clean of the potent influence of the drugs. Being restored then to her former condition, and showing herself to the king, she amazed those who gazed upon her, and they thought that a kind of providence of the gods had transformed her old age into a maiden's youth and striking beauty. Also, by means of certain drugs, Medea caused shapes of the dragons to appear, which she declared had brought the goddess through the air from the Hyperboreans to make her stay with Pelias. And since the deeds which Medea had performed appeared to be too great for mortal nature, and the king saw fit to regard her with great approval, and, in a word, believed that she was telling the truth, she now, they say, in private conversation with Pelias, urged him to order his daughters to cooperate with her and do whatever she might command them. For it was fitting, she said, that the king's body should receive the favor which the gods were according to him through the hands, not of servants, but of his own children. Consequently, Pelias gave explicit directions to his daughters to do everything that Medea might command them with respect to the body of their father, and the maidens were quite ready to carry out her orders. Medea then, as the story relates, when night had come and Pelias had fallen asleep, informed the daughters that it was required that the body of Pelias be boiled in a cauldron. But when the maidens received the proposal with hostility, she devised a second proof that what she said could be believed. For there was a ram full of years which was kept in their home, and she announced to the maidens that she would first boil it, and thus make it into a lamb again. When they agreed to this, we are told that Medea severed it apart limb by limb, boiled the lamb's body, and then, working a deception by means of certain drugs, she drew out of the cauldron an image which looked like a lamb. Thereupon the maidens were astounded, and were so convinced that they had received all possible proofs that she could do what she was promising, that they carried out her orders. All the rest of them beat their father to death, but Alcestis alone, because of her great piety, would not lay hands upon him who had begotten her. This passage continues with the disbanding of the Argonauts, but our next passage gives another version of Medea's magical rejuvenation.